David was a 19-year-old boy living in a quiet village called Greenhill. The village was surrounded by beautiful hills, a flowing river, and lush greenery. David was known for his cheerful spirit and adventurous nature. He spent most of his days exploring the woods, playing soccer with his friends, or helping his parents. David's family wasn't rich, but they were content. His father, Mr. Brown, worked as a carpenter, crafting furniture for the villagers. His mother, Mrs. Brown, was a vegetable seller at the market. Despite their modest life, they raised David to be kind and hardworking. One evening, after an exhausting day of soccer with his friends, David returned home tired. His clothes were muddy, and his face was streaked with sweat. Mrs. Brown called out from the kitchen, "David, wash your hands and come eat. Dinner is ready." "Yes, Mama," he replied, rushing to the backyard to clean up. As the family sat down for dinner, David's father asked, "How was your day, son?" "It was great, Papa. We won the game today," David said excitedly. "That's my boy." Mr. Brown laughed, ruffling David's hair. After dinner, David helped his mother clear the table and went to his room. He was too tired to do anything else, so he lay down on his bed, staring at the wooden ceiling. The sound of crickets and the cool breeze coming through the window made him feel peaceful. Soon, he drifted into a deep sleep. That night, David had a dream unlike any he'd ever had before. In the dream, he found himself walking through the woods. The trees were taller than usual, and the path seemed unfamiliar. As he walked further, he noticed the air becoming colder and the surroundings quieter. Suddenly, he saw an old man standing in the middle of the path. The man wore a white robe that shimmered faintly in the moonlight. His face was calm but carried an air of wisdom. "David," the old man said in a deep, steady voice. David froze. "Who are you? How do you know my name?" The old man didn't answer the question. Instead, he said, "Listen carefully. Do not go to the river tomorrow. Something dangerous will happen." David was confused. "Why? What's going to happen?" "I cannot tell you more," the man replied. "But this is a warning. If you ignore it, you will regret it." The old man turned and began walking away, disappearing into the mist. David tried to follow him, shouting, "Wait. I need to know more." But the man was gone. David woke up with a jolt. His heart was pounding, and sweat dripped down his forehead. He looked around the room, trying to make sense of what had just happened. The next morning, the sun shone brightly, and the village buzzed with activity. David joined his parents for breakfast, but he was unusually quiet. "David, are you okay?" his mother asked, noticing his troubled expression. "I had a strange dream last night," he said hesitantly. "What kind of dream?" Mr. Brown asked, sipping his tea. David explained the dream to his parents. His mother looked concerned, but his father chuckled. "Dreams are just dreams, son. Don't let them scare you." Mrs. Brown, however, was more cautious. "David, sometimes dreams carry messages. Maybe you should stay away from the river today, just in case." David nodded, but deep down, he wasn't sure if he believed the dream was important. Later that morning, David's best friend, James, came over. James was an energetic boy with a mischievous streak. "David, let's go to the river. Everyone is waiting for us," James said. David hesitated. "I'm not sure, James. I had a weird dream last night about the river. An old man warned me not to go." James laughed. "A dream? Seriously? Come on, David. You're not going to let a dream stop you from having fun, are you?" David frowned. "I don't know, it felt real." "Dreams aren't real," James said dismissively. "It's just your imagination." Let's go. David thought about it for a moment. The sun was shining, the day was perfect for swimming, and his friends were all waiting. Maybe it was just a silly dream, he told himself. Reluctantly, David grabbed his shoes and followed James to the river. When they arrived, the riverbank was bustling with activity. The boys were splashing in the water, skipping stones, and laughing loudly. David couldn't help but join in, and soon, the dream was far from his mind. Hours passed, and the boys were having the time of their lives. But as the afternoon wore on, dark clouds began to gather in the sky. The wind picked up, and the once calm river started flowing faster. "Hey, the water is rising," one of the boys shouted. The group began to panic. Suddenly, a loud crack of thunder startled everyone. The river's current grew stronger, and the boys scrambled to get out of the water. As they were leaving, David noticed that one of the younger boys, Michael, had fallen and was struggling against the current. Michael screamed for help as the water dragged him further away. "Help! Someone help me!" Michael cried. David froze, his heart racing. The old man's warning echoed in his mind. Without thinking, David grabbed a long branch and ran toward the riverbank. "Hold on, Michael. I'm coming," he shouted. The water was wild and dangerous, but David stretched the branch toward Michael, who managed to grab it just in time. With all his strength, David pulled Michael to safety. The boys cheered as Michael collapsed on the riverbank, coughing and gasping for air. David's heart was pounding, but he felt relieved that Michael was safe. As they walked back to the village, David couldn't stop thinking about the dream. If he had stayed home, Michael might not have been saved. But if he had listened to the old man, he might have avoided the danger altogether. That night, as David lay in bed, he couldn't sleep. When he finally drifted off, the old man appeared in his dream again. "You ignored my warning, David," the man said, his voice calm but firm. "But you were brave and saved your friend. Let this be a lesson, warnings come for a reason." David nodded, tears in his eyes. "I'm sorry. I should have listened." The old man's expression softened. "You have learned the hard way. Trust your instincts, and you will make better choices in the future." David woke up the next morning with a new sense of understanding. He knew he had to be more cautious and attentive to the signs around him.